Welcome to Inside Look. I'm Jeff Lyons, and my guest today is Robinson Miles, only the third man to occupy the anchor chair at WFIE in 50 years. We'll find out how that came about on Inside Look. We have Robinson Miles on the program today. Welcome, Robinson.
Thanks for letting me.
Glad you're letting you. Well, I mean, this is like my guarded little cell back here. You know, we bring people in. I've been wanting to talk to you for a long time. We knew that you were going to be the anchor, so they said, well, hold off until he's been in there for a couple, 3 weeks. Looks like you're going to stick with it, right?
Yeah, they haven't canned me quite yet.
No,
so
nobody's going to can you. You got to have more self-confidence around here, you know. So you've got such a story. I don't even know how we're going to begin. I guess we'll start at the beginning. So you are actually from the western, I guess, the western part of the country, right? At least Colorado, Utah, that area. So tell me, how does somebody get from out there to here in the tri-state?
A lot of whims and the following of gut feelings, I think, more than anything.
And this isn't your first career, right? I mean, you had gone down a whole different path, too. You want to talk about that?
Absolutely. When I was about 15, I was totally convinced that I was going to go into accounting. That's what my dad did, and he never pushed me on it or anything like that, but it was just, I saw the perks of it. I was really good at the math. It was something that clicked with my head, and I was just convinced that's what I was going to do. So when I finally hit college, I just started doing the work and getting through school. All was going well. And then I worked a couple years at an accounting firm in Logan, Utah, where I was going to school, Utah State. And, you know, I love the environment. It was truly the best possible situation for someone to work, but the work was just not me, and I was a constant nuisance because I was such a gabber, and I liked telling stories and
being outside the box. And accounting's all about being in that box, right?
Oh yeah, very binary. You did it right, or you did not do it right, and you know, you had to be that precise. And so I was in my second tax season. You know how involving that can be, and it just snapped something in my brain. I thought, this is not for me. And where I had that perception since I was 15, I had to get to know myself all over again because that was a perception I'd had for over a decade at that point.
So how did you then decide, I want to tell stories on TV?
That was the one thing I knew, is I loved telling stories. And so I knew broadcast. The Utah State broadcast program is journalism specific. So really it kind of backed me into that. At the same time, I was doing radio in my hometown in western Wyoming. I was covering football and basketball play-by-play for Kemmer Rangers. Go Rangers. And
I think we have a few Rangers fans out there, right? Well, you know, this goes all over the world, so you can refer it to
I was going to say, I'm still very invested in that high school's wins and losses years ago. And then, you know, really more than anything, I mean, as you know, the work that we do, I mean, you started in reporting when you got going.
Sure.
You learn so much, and it's drinking from a fire hose. And so even not knowing where I was going to end up, I just knew I'm going to learn a ton. I'll jump in, do the reporter thing for a while, and then maybe after a few years, I'll branch into something else. But I know this will be the way that I can learn faster than any other. I had a couple different opportunities, one in Texas, one in Louisiana. This was the gut feeling that Evansville was the spot, and here we are.
And so did you move? You were married when you moved here, right? You and McKay moved here together.
Yep.
Okay, so what was the sales pitch and what does McKay do, your wife?
So McKay got when we moved here, she was working on her master's degree in museum studies.
Okay.
And as part of that program, she needed to find an internship nearby. And so she just kind of cold called a few different places, just kind of showed up. Do you need help, please?
Right.
And she got in at the Evansville Wartime Museum near the airport, and it just fit like a glove. They were so happy to have her that now she's the curator.
So it was all meant to be. So you come out to Evansville. Now talk about, there had to be, although you've traveled a lot, so was there much culture shock coming to the tri-state from the West? Or maybe you'd give a better contrast of someplace you've been versus here.
You know, all the specificity was really unique here because not only had I never been to Indiana before until I was in the U-Haul driving here, I hadn't been to any adjacent state either. So this was a region of the country which was entirely new. And the thing that stuck out to me more than anything, especially having grown up out west where everything's far apart. When I was covering this football and basketball games, the nearest school was 3 hours away, and then the next closest was 5 or 6. And So having so many things nearby just blew our minds. We can't ever doing road trips every weekend because everything felt close. It was only 2 hours. It was only 3 hours. That's a day trip. That's nothing. And
Yeah.
getting used to that has been so fun.
So you came in the door. I remember seeing, I think it was your first day here, and you were all full, still are full of life, and like, what can I do next? And you have sort of established yourself over, what have you been here? Almost 3 years, right?
Going on 4 in
Or
June.
4, so 3.5 roughly. I don't know when this will actually drop and be broadcast, so we'll just be general. But when you came here, you told me that story about wanting to tell stories and everything. And of course, you've done feature reporting, you've done weather, news. Now you're anchoring. So, of the 4 realms there, how is each one tailored to your talents and what you like to do?
It's interesting. And this sound, especially for those who work in the industry that we do, the most cliche thing that you can say is just, well, I just love getting to know people and connect with people. But that's always been it for me. I like the challenge of breaking news. I like the feeling of being the first one out there. I understand the weight of getting information to people, and that's a powerful thing. And I don't want to skim past that. But my favorites have always just been getting out and just telling people stories and connecting with them, the things that are important to them. I think the easiest way to distill that is the times that I've been able to spend down on Franklin Street for Fall Festival. People are excited. They want to be there.
They absolutely do.
Yeah.
They don't want to leave either.
100%, and rightfully so. Whether they're enjoying themselves or it's nonprofits, you have so many people who are excited to be there with family, be there with friends, be there furthering a cause that they're passionate about. It's a perfect crystallization of everything I love about what we do. And, it's so hard. Well, actually, it's part of the beauty of it. It's why accounting was such a false start for me. I remember the first tax return that hit my desk in year 2, my brain couldn't wrap around it because I thought, I've done this before, though. This was a year ago, but I did it.
Yeah,
why would I do it again? It's done. And so in news, you don't have that.
Right.
Everything is its own unique animal, and so it's fun.
Every day's a new day, and you never
100%.
know what's going to happen. There's the unpredictability of it, too, which adds to the excitement and the drama, as versus accounting, which, it's always April 15th, and, you always have to deduct and do whatnot. I dabbled in accounting for about 20 minutes when I was couldn't keep debit and credit right. I knew one was on the left, but the debit, right, is on the left.
Man, I want to say debit's on the right, but I'm often wrong.
You're in the right place then. See, we have people that can do that for us. So talk a little bit about, the stories that you've done. What, if you had one that was really meaningful in some way, or not that your work isn't meaningful, but one that really hit you, that stuck with you, like even now you say, boy, that story about what was it?
One that meant a lot to me, I had just barely switched on to weekends initially, which is a standard thing. You come and start reporting. Once you get your feet wet, okay, cool. Now you're going to do weekends, and you're the lowest man on the totem pole, whatever. And it was one of my first Saturdays. I'd been doing that only a few weeks, and we had the tornadoes, Western Kentucky. And I was the first reporter who was down there during the day on that ensuing day, and it was a whirlwind for months. And you met so many people, and we had so many moments of lack of structure on our end, where we know there's going to be things that need to be addressed and shared. And so going down there, just trying to make connections as quickly as you can, find those who could get the information that needs to go out, and meeting a family who had suffered some real devastation and some really terrible things had happened with them. And then the biggest thing was a year later, where we were looking for opportunities to touch base again with those who'd been affected, and I was able to reconnect with them. And that was something that meant a lot to me, because the worry is every day is self-contained here. You don't want to make anyone feel as though their experience are trivialized in any way. You don't want to make them feel as though, oh, this is such a great thing for me today that I get to tell
I've got a story, right.
100%. So to come back a year later and they remembered me and they were eager to talk to me and they felt comfortable with me and share something that was very intimate. And they welcomed me into their home, and I got to really dig deep and show an experience for them. And I know I'm being vague here. I don't want to put them on the spot, but something like that was validating in a lot of ways, that I could do the job and I did a good job, but I didn't alienate anyone, and I made them feel as though their experience was told in a way that was true to their experience.
Yeah. So you're living the dream then. You're telling stories, you're doing it in a broadcast medium, and now they tap you to anchor, which in some ways is limiting because you're not in the field as much, but in other ways, you're now the face of the station, one of the faces of the station, right? So how does that play into the Robinson Miles psyche?
You know, it's an interesting thing because Randy Moore, David James, you mentioned I'm number 3 in a timeline that goes back really far. Those two are not only incredible at what they do, but they're institutions. And so it's one of those things that there's a ton of pressure to walk into that. And, you know, you don't want to screw it up, all that stuff. But the other side, too, is having to have the confidence of, okay, I'm not Randy and I'm not David, and that's okay. I can be Rob, and that's all right. And maybe it takes people a while to start to like me. But that's one of those things that has been really fun to kind of inject my own flavor into it, and there's been some positivity there so far. And it's
but
been
you're
fun
one of
too.
those people, though, and I've worked with a lot of different people over the years. After not long after you had started, and after we got you into weather immediately.
Oh, yeah.
Remember we put the hook on you because Arden was having child number 1.
It's like, who can
and
talk?
We had to have
Rob.
somebody to fill in, right? And you did an awesome job at that. But it wasn't. I think you'd done weather maybe a week, and I'm getting feedback, very positive feedback everywhere I went. Who's the new guy? We love the new guy. You know, we need to see more of the new guy. I think meaning the old guy needed to, take more time off. But so you're one of those people that people seem to connect with and to. And I guess, has that been a little bit of a learning curve? I'm sure when you were doing taxes and you went to the grocery store, nobody bugged you, right? I mean, well, unless it was their return. But now you go out and people know you, and they feel like they know you anyway. What's that been like for you?
It's been really fun. You know, I can't act as though there's been a ton of that all the time. I can't act as though I'm a local celebrity. And part of that, too, is that I'm notoriously unobservant when I'm not on the clock. When I'm reporting, you see everything, and you got to see everything. But when I'm just out in the world, it's my wife's favorite thing in the world to have us walk out of Target or something. She say, that lady knew who you were. It's like, what are you talking about?
They mumble.
Oh, yeah. She clocks these people watching me go by and stuff like that. But it's one of those things, I've always had a lot of motivation that whatever I do, whether it was accounting or whatever, it's the old Groucho Marx quote, if you're not having fun, you're doing something wrong. And I try to inject a lot of that in there. So there was a lot of worry so when you have those moments, all just to say that when people go back and they like what I do, it's really, really validating, because that was a gamble. I thought there would be a certain logic to being very dour and being very Stone Phillips and the voice of
Stone
authority.
Phillips. There's a
Who's
great reference. That makes me feel better now. I remember Stone Phillips on TV, and there is a resemblance, at least, hair-wise. He had black hair, though. But anyway, who'd you watch? I mean, since this was sort of an afterthought or a second career, then, the typical path when you talk to broadcasters, I watched, in my case, Marcia Yaki or Walter Cronkite or somebody like that. Did you even watch news much as a kid?
Interestingly, there was one news program which was just religious in our household, and that was Sunday morning. We watched that growing up every
with Charles
single week.
Kuralt or Charles Osgood?
Charles Osgood was the one that I remember more.
Yeah.
And that was something that always meant so much to me. Even before I had any interest in this, when I was a teenager, young kid, I loved Sunday morning. And, the whole idea being culture, art, science, the things that kind of fall through the cracks. And they would tell things in a bit more of a storytelling sort of way. And I got really attached to a lot of those figures, even when I was still Mr. Accounting, which I don't think anyone's going to really believe that I ever embodied that.
Right.
But you're Steve Hartman's, Mo Rocca's, Luke Burbank's, Jane Pauley. I just loved their style because they brought so much sincerity to it. And that was... the topics lent themselves to that a little bit, but even at that time, I gobbled that up, and so that's been one of those things I've always kind of held with me.
So made the impression and planted the seed. You just didn't know you'd have to put a little accounting fertilizer on it to make it grow and flower, right?
Oh yeah, I was putting stuff in the cache I didn't know I'd ever be drawing on, but here we are.
Okay, so looking ahead. What do you hope to accomplish in your career here? Now that you're an anchor, you have access to maybe different stories than you might have had, when you were a beat reporter. What kind of stuff turns you on that you would like to cover or learn more about?
That's an interesting concept because I've thought for a long time, and of course there's a hierarchy to business that follows this as well. The higher you get up the ladder, the more responsibility, but the more autonomy you have as well. The more you can kind of structure your own time. And so I spent a lot of time thinking about, well, what can I do to maximize that? And it's an interesting thing. So far, I've been doing a lot of behind the scenes work. A lot of people probably haven't seen this, but I've started leading a lot of training in-house, wanting to give people as much support and help as they can, a lot of teaching, a lot of training there. And then there's always the hope that, I'm good friends with a lot of our reporters on staff. Maybe we can do some deeper dives. Maybe we can do some road trip things. Maybe we can do some of those things that maybe we don't get the chance to do all the time, because oftentimes during the day, the big things happen and we got to be there. So maybe kind of strengthening our presence with a lot of those community stories or things that we always say we would like to do, but don't always necessarily have the resources for.
So it's exciting time, certainly for Channel 14, having sort of crowning this new, face, our standard bearer here. And, it must be exciting at home as well. So that's all worked out. Now, what do you do when you're not on the clock then? So when you're not tuned in, you're not paying attention to anything. What are your hobbies? What do you like to do?
Big movie guy. That's one of my things. Always have loved movies, always loved TV shows, in the vein of being so stereotypical, big video games guy, things like that. We were able to carry a lot of our interests from out west. My wife and I both love to hike. We both love to explore. We love to travel. Thankfully, my sister still lives in Europe, so we've been able to take advantage of that, take a lot of trips out to visit her and her family. And that, of course, is another advantage to living out here, is we have so many more airports that we can choose from.
That's right. You can go to Nashville, Indy, St. Louis, Evansville, whatever. You traveled a lot before any of this happened. You were, I think you told me, were you in Chile?
Yeah, I was in Chile.
Okay, and then some other place, some other wild place. It wasn't just like you went to Ohio. What was the other one?
Well, the other big one was McKay. She was an au pair in Italy. When
Italy,
she graduated
that's what it
high
was.
school,
Okay.
and I went and lived in Chile for a couple of years.
Okay, so that's really, and you had to learn to speak,
learn to speak Spanish.
Right.
I was there as a missionary, so a lot of my vocabulary is a little more focused on that.
Well,
but I can
that's
still
true.
handle myself in conversation. But
are you comfortable traveling the world like that? You're not, fearful?
Oh my gosh, I'm generally the more tentative one between McKay and I, which a lot of people would be surprised why, because she's about a foot shorter than I am.
Right.
But she's a fireball, and she loves all that stuff, and I love to go with her. But I'm always the one. Are we sure we're prepared? Do we have everything? Are we okay?
That's right.
No, but we've had a great time there. A few years ago, we were able to do a trip with each of our parents in one big trip, and that was a fun transition where we were kind of the adults in that situation. Do you have your passport? Do you have everything you need? And that was
I'm afraid if my
kids
kids took me overseas, they'd leave me there. So we gotta work on them a little bit. I'm glad that your travels all around the world took you to the tri-state. I think this is an exciting new start here, and it's good to actually get to talk to you, without like a 2-minute rap or a 30-second rap or anything like that.
I'm just glad that you still enjoy talking to me, because I feel like, and hopefully this comes across on the air, but I always feel like we've had a fun little rapport, and so now that where I get to anchor the shows. And I love to put you on the spot, and I love to tease you on it.
Oh, that's right. People love to do that. So
I know. It's like, I love Jeff, everybody. This is why I'm not just hassling you.
Oh, no. No hassle whatsoever. So come back anytime. You know where we are now. We're kind of back here behind the broom closet.
But, one of the few quiet and secluded spaces here in the building.
So anyway, well, Robinson Miles, thanks for spending some time here on Inside Look. Of course, you can see Robinson Miles anchoring at 5, 6, and 10 every night here on 14 News Monday through Friday. And if he's not there, he might be behind you in the movie theater, so you can check that out as well. Keep watching Inside Look and recommend it to your friends. You can get Inside Look wherever you get your podcast. Our YouTube version is also available each week, so see who next shows up on Inside Look. I'm Jeff Lyons. Thanks for listening.